Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 4 of the Steeler Culture Podcast, presented by SteelTwins.com and a part of the Steel City Podcast Network. Our co-host, Justin, will not be joining us today due to the PA weather being bipolar, but we do want to introduce the latest writer, the newest writer to SteelYinzers.com, Ben. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Steel Yinzers. Glad to have you on. How you doing, brother?
I am doing fantastic. I am so happy part of this organization. It's kind of crazy. A couple weeks ago, I thought I'd be taking a break from writing, but as life says, when one door closes, another one opens. So I am excited to be a part of you guys for this upcoming season and for the foreseeable future. So I'm glad to be here.
And we're glad to have you on, man. Great to have you here. And you already got an article up there, which is great. Rearming or rebuilding? Can the Steelers make a serious push for next season? And the way free agency is going, they very well could. We're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about week 1 of the free agency moves the Steelers have made. Let's get right into it, man. The Steelers signed Patrick Peterson to a 2-year, $14 million deal. Now, this is obviously after Cameron Sutton left pretty much quickly into the legal tampering period to sign with the Lions. A very good deal, very deserving deal. Unfortunately, him and the Steelers were not even close to agreeing on the deal, so he went to probably the highest bidder, as he's deserving. So it sucks to see him walk, but we signed someone very quickly, someone with experience, a very familiar name, someone that's definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame one day, and someone I think is going to be a 1-year rental. I know he signed a 2-year deal, but I think this is going to be a 1-year rental, and you kind of already know where the Steelers are going with this. How do you feel about Pat Pete coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I think it's a steal of a signing, especially the fact that he comes with the history, he comes with the pedigree. He's an all-around, even at this age, he's an all-around 5-star corner, and that's something that Pittsburgh has been lacking for years. Especially when y'all thought Artie Burns was going to be that guy. Well, we were all wrong. So it's like it's going to be very good, not for just right now, but long term. He's going to help Tomlin set that corner room straight. He's going to teach these young guys, especially if they go corner in the draft. We don't know who they're going to take at what time. But whatever young guy they do bring in, he's going to mentor this person, teach them the ins and outs, and it will benefit us for the long term. And he still has some gas in that tank, especially watching his tape with the Vikings this past year. He can still perform. So it's going to benefit us in multiple ways. And I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. He started all 17 games last year, coming off 5 interceptions.
Yeah, for a Viking secondary that I believe was one ranked last in the NFL, but he was one of the guys that definitely stood out.
He could still play, and he's going to be 33 by the time week 1 comes. But yeah, like you said, he still has gas in the tank, and he's going to play that mentor role in the secondary perfectly, especially for what is going to be a much younger cornerback room come the draft. You know they're going to target it early. Whether that guy sits under Peterson for a bit, which is most likely going to be the case, but yeah, him coming to Pittsburgh, and it is official, he's going to be wearing number 20, taking Cam Sutton's number and wearing the same number as his cousin, Brian McFadden. I think that's perfect. I think that's a great story. Bringing his type of influence in his mind.
And leadership as well for the secondary room. You know, it's definitely what they need, like Ben said. Having a guy with that much experience and still a lot left in the tank, you know, it's definitely a plus for the Steelers. He's definitely a good replacement, in my opinion, for Cam Sutton as of right now. To have a mentor and teach these guys and train these guys, it's going to benefit the Steelers in the long run. I do believe so.
Yeah, it definitely is. Next, they signed Nate Herbig to a 2-year, $8 million deal. This is the second move they made, the first of the offensive lineman moves. And this is a guy we had on our wish list because of that Andy Waddle connection. He went undrafted. Waddle brought him in. He has a lot of starting experience as a rotational piece, as a fill-in for the Eagles, and most recently for the Jets. This guy is massive, freaking massive, and this guy was pretty much the first story that pretty much tells you, hey, we're going for these big linemen. We're going for these monsters, these mammoths.
These maulers.
And that's what Herbig is, man. So we'll see what his role is. But how do you feel about getting Big Boy on the line?
I get big DeCastro vibes when I look at this guy. He is very big. He's very wide. And he also has a lot of experience watching him on tape in that run game. Pittsburgh likes to run a lot of swing guards. They like to power. He fits that role. And especially the fact Najee, even with the subpar line play that we had last year, we saw them open up a couple gaps occasionally. And Najee hit those holes. We know early season he definitely had some sort of lingering injury. He wasn't the same. But towards the tail end, that explosiveness was coming back. So I look at this also not only from a now perspective of bringing somebody like him in, it's a great signing. It's a steal. I'm surprised that we managed to get this guy, especially after how he performed with the Eagles. But I think this is also a heads up for Dotson and Daniels. You got competition, so now you have to put your best foot forward. And I think that's the new mentality of this front office. They're saying, if you don't show up for what you were supposed to do, we're not afraid to replace you. And that's needed because Steelers have been complacent in many facets for many years, and it has hurt us. We have had a lot of guys on this roster that did not perform, and it cost us games. So I think this is a changing of the guard in our mentality for the future. So I'm really excited to see what Herbig brings.
Yeah, I love that thinking. That's what they need, especially on the line. They need someone big. They need that competition. Initially, when this signing happened, I'm thinking, well, this guy's going to compete with Dotson, which Dotson absolutely needed. But seeing what the Steelers did this morning, which we'll get into later, hey, you know what? Herbig is definitely going to compete in some fashion because he deserves it. He's that good. Waddle loves him that much.
And I think it's great to have this much competition for the offensive line because it makes them better. It helps the offensive line more, when it comes to the running game and especially protecting Kenny Pickett.
And even if this guy is just depth initially, right? That is phenomenal depth compared to what we've had the past number of years.
Yeah.
This guy's versatile, can play anywhere in that interior line, which the Steelers adore the flexibility. But this guy's just great depth, if that's going to be the case.
And the crazy thing is, I think he's only going to be 25 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
He's very young, and he already has so much experience. Very similar to Cole and Daniels last year, so they're kind of keeping that rhythm. Now, transitioning back to the defense, the Steelers signed Cole Holcomb to a 3-year, $18 million deal. He did pass his physical coming off of an injury, so he is a Pittsburgh Steeler, and it's good to have him. And this is, I think this is a very quiet signing. Along with the other linebacker that they signed, Elandon Roberts to a 2-year, $7 million deal. So you knew the Steelers had to attack linebacker because linebacker last year, very underwhelming. They needed to revamp the room, and very well they did. They signed these two guys, and very shortly they cut Miles Jack, saving $8 million in cap. And now the only guy returning to the linebacker room from last year, as far as we know, is Mark Robinson. They completely revamped this room. You know the direction they're going with these two guys. These guys are great in the run game, ferocious pass rushers. They want to fix that department. That's something linebackers sucked at last year. Was the run game. They couldn't come down and fill those goals. They weren't downhill gap guys. They were getting bodied and bullied around, but we replaced them with two guys that are bullies in the run game, and also guys that bring a ton of leadership and experience, and even Holcomb was that green dot guy.
Yeah, part of that front seven for the Commanders. He's still pretty young, still pretty experienced. He's like you said, a ferocious run defender. Same with Elandon Roberts. Mm-hmm. Roberts reminds me a lot of a Vince Williams type player who can be a special teams type of player, captain, rotational inside linebacker, but an occasional pass rusher. Because when Williams played that role, he was so good in that role.
Roberts himself last year had more tackles for loss and sacks than our three linebackers did combined. That's a testament how good this guy is.
Yeah.
Ben, how do you feel about these two linebackers? How do you feel about the linebacker room in general just being changed and revamped? Do you think it was needed?
It's long overdue. Like, Bush, ever since his ACL was not the same. Miles Jack was a nice rental. He was that rental car you get for a couple months, but then you're like, it's not worth it. Like, ever since Jack had his knee problems going on, he didn't perform for that contract. And I was thinking about this ever since I initially saw the contracts. I watched tape on both of these guys. I'm really starting to think that Tomlin wants to bring us back to the late 2000s, early 2010s style of Steeler defense. The old school 3-4. Because ever since we tried this hybrid Tampa 2 type thing, they've been getting gashed up the middle like nobody's business. Especially last year. I believe they were 32nd in stopping the run. I could be wrong, but it was atrocious. And we saw like second stringers breaking 100-yard games against us. And like, why is this happening? Well, it's because our linebacking core couldn't fit the run scheme. They weren't attacking blockers, and they weren't paying attention. And I find it funny watching both of these guys on tape, especially Holcomb, how he managed to slip to us in free agency and nobody picked him up is astonishing. Because you may think I'm crazy, I get some Lawrence Timmons vibes by watching him on tape. Because Timmons would sit there, watch that back, he wouldn't attack you early, and he'd wait to see what you would do. Holcomb does exactly that, especially watching the tape, I believe, against Miami, where Mostert comes out and he's going left tackle, and Holcomb is literally watching him. And as soon as Mostert breaks on the left side, he charges him and takes him head on and stops him for like 2 yards. Bush can't do that.
No.
I don't care how fast Bush is. Bush lost his physicality. He lost his toughness because he never was the same. He would be afraid to tackle at times, especially when he ran past the quarterback at one point. And Roberts complements Holcomb very well. Holcomb is the rangy kind of guy. He's not Shazier. I'm not saying that. But Holcomb is the rangy kind of guy. He'll follow you outside. He'll plug your gap. Roberts will smack you right in the mouth. And yeah, Spillane did that to Derrick Henry. Spillane was a very tough linebacker, but he was very slow in some cases, and he wasn't the best at coverage. So with both of these guys on that roster, along with Mark Robinson, a lot of people are not talking about Mark Robinson. He's a sleeper. He's very raw, yes. But Pittsburgh is known for building guys from the ground up that aren't given that opportunity. Look at James Harrison. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, there's potential. Are they going to be all-stars? We don't know yet. But the potential is there for this to be one of the best linebacking cores we have seen in, I'd say, 5 or 6 years. That alone is something to look forward to.
I could not agree more. Now, initially when I seen these two signings, I had flashbacks of, well, this could be another Schobert, this could be another Avery Williamson, this could be another John Bostic, Miles Jack situation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I quickly turned my tune as soon as I started looking at these guys and seeing what the Steelers were doing. They want to stop that run.
Yeah.
They want to build this linebacker room. Like you just mentioned, Mark Robinson, 7th-round rookie. Everyone's giving him Vince Williams vibes, right? Building from the ground up via special teams. Could develop into a nice guy, right?
Especially bringing in Aaron Curry as a new inside linebackers coach. That could really be something.
That's exactly what they're doing. They're revamping the linebacker room. It was needed, and bringing these two guys in with the level of experience and leadership and impact that they bring on and off the field and in the locker room, that's great. And you know they're still going to attack the position early because they have to. Holcomb and Roberts are great additions. I'm already excited for the run defense next year, especially since they brought back Larry Ogunjobi to a 3-year extension, right? They could fill in D-tackle, free agency, or the draft still, but the run defense, I'm excited for next year. The pass coverage for these two guys, obviously very iffy. What they address with that, I think they address that in the draft. They're going to want an all-round athlete. They're going to want an all-round talent. A Trenton Simpson, a Dayan Henley, a Dorian Williams, a Jack Campbell-like guy, right? They got to attack someone early.
Yeah.
But they're going to build him and Jack under these two guys.
Similar to cornerback with the signing of Patrick Peterson, they're going to develop and learn and marinate under these veterans with the caliber of leadership that these guys have. And for inside linebacker, they needed to revamp it completely.
Yeah. And with Kenny under contract, I think that's a pretty decent approach. Could they have been stronger at attacking the inside linebacker position, seeing how deep it was in free agency? Yeah, they could have. They could have made more cap room earlier. They could have made moves a little earlier than they did. But seeing what they have done and how they've just attacked week one, I don't think any of us are going to sit here and complain much. I think these two signings are great. The linebacker room needed it, and I'm excited to see what these guys bring to the defense.
Without a doubt.
Now, the Steelers did take a break for about a day or two from making moves from any news, but last night, or for me personally this morning, I woke up to phenomenal news, man. The Steelers signed Isaac Seumalo to a 3-year, $24 million deal. This, in my opinion, is a big splash and the best signing thus far by Omar Khan and Andy Waddle. This is phenomenal. He's a little on the older side. He'll be 30 come late October, but the guy can play.
Yeah.
The guy's versatile. He has experience at left and right guard. I think he'll insert perfectly at left guard, taking over Dotson's role. What they do with Dotson, he might be depth, he might be cut, he might take the Kendrick Green role as being as a healthy and active. Either way, as long as he's not in the starting lineup, I think we're good to go. I mean, this guy is just great, and it goes to show you Andy Waddle already has his fingerprints in building the trenches and building the line, which was severely needed. And I'm glad he already put his spoon into the pot, because bringing in Herbig and Seumalo, two former Eagles linemen, he already has that influence. He wants his guys there. He wants the big, beefy guys. He wants the interior line to be ready to go. And that's what they bring with these two guys, man, with Seumalo and Herbig. And now I'm starting to think Herbig, right? he might just be depth initially. But I think because Seumalo can now play left guard, or in case of an emergency, they can insert him at right guard.
And then you have that insurance policy in Herbig to slot right in there.
Or vice versa. I mean, these guys have so much versatility and flexibility for any insurance on the line. It's perfect. But if I'm the Steelers, I'm absolutely welcoming all sort of competition at every guard spot. James Daniels may not be safe. Even Seumalo may not be safe. Even Mason Cole may not be safe. I don't know what the Steelers want to do. I don't know what the starting five is going to look like, but I love how improved the interior offensive line looks already. I think the line has improved immensely compared to last year. Wouldn't you agree, Ben? How do you feel about this signing, man? This was big.
Like I reiterated earlier, I really like how this front office is working from the inside out. They realize that their biggest weakness was their offensive line, and that cost Kenny Pickett 2 concussions. And I think the front office is really taking that factor into consideration. This is also a wake-up call for anybody on that interior line because they were not the best last year. They gave up a lot of sacks, a lot of missed opportunities of creating gaps for the run game. This is their wake-up call. They need to perform in training camp, otherwise they're going to be cut. And also the fact that they just signed this guy who is a mauler. If anybody has not watched the tape on this guy, I've literally seen him take double teams and push them out of the way by himself. Kendrick Green is gone. That's obvious. Like, he's not going to be here if just because of this signing. Because Herbig, like you reiterated, he is the depth piece. And Pittsburgh has been burned in the past couple of years because of the lack of depth at guard. We've seen them have to take Chucks, move him to guard sometimes. They have to swing tackles, move him around, sometimes move a center to guard. It was a chaotic mess. Well, they are fixing that. And what's really interesting now, depending on the whole Mason Cole thing, if he still performs at a decent level, is there a chance Pittsburgh can go at center within the next 2 years in the draft? We don't know. But it definitely solidifies the interior of that line. It's going to help Najee out a lot. It's going to help Kenny out a lot. And prepare to see some more ground and pound, especially more than what we're used to. So I cannot wait for that.
I can't wait either. I think the way they built this interior line is perfect. I think it was needed. And I'm so glad that they're already approaching this. Now, obviously, I think the biggest weakness on that offensive line, I think we can all agree, is still left tackle mostly. But the Steelers have already attempted to address it. They tried to sign Orlando Brown before he signed with the Bengals, which was very newsworthy and very eye-opening.
Yeah. So it goes to show they're looking at left tackle as well.
So how do you feel about that, Ben? I don't know if you heard about that, but do you think they address it in free agency or the draft?
Honestly, I don't know because I feel like they don't like Dan Moore because the fact that they just tried to get Orlando Brown. They kind of made it obvious that they are looking to replace him, which I think all of us that watch him on a weekly basis realize that he is just a statue. He doesn't actually do anything. If they have the right guy at 17 versus, let's say, a Joey Porter, that's a really tough call, and that comes down to the Omar Khan and his front office guys. Which do we value more? Do we want to make our defense more strong, or do we want to actually protect our franchise quarterback? And yes, haters, I said franchise quarterback. So it's weird. Like, I know Taylor Lewan, there's that whole speculation of that. I don't know if I really want a 31, 32-year-old tackle who has a lot of history with TJ Watt. I don't want to bring any bad blood into the locker room. So if they find somebody on either way, I'm okay with it. But it's a move that has to be addressed. And if I could find an experienced guy for cheap that will last a couple years before we draft somebody, perfect. If they can find a young guy that they can mold that will actually perform and will actually be an amazing product, I'm okay with that too. So either way, I mean, it's going to be addressed.
It is, and but the pool in free agency, and we looked at it before hitting record here. The pool's not really that deep. There's not a lot of crazy guys. There's a couple depth pieces they could bring in, which is very needed at tackle, but no one they can insert and be that next guy. So I think addressing it in the draft is the way to go.
Or really be here for the long run, because a lot of them are basically at the tail end of their careers.
Yeah.
So it's a very tricky situation.
Yeah.
Like if they manage to get a corner and pick 17, they will probably go left tackle. I believe it's pick 32. Like, I would not be surprised if they do that.
Yeah, or even if they move Chucks to left tackle and draft a right tackle, which is very possible. I mean,
Yes.
either way, they are going to improve left tackle. It's just a matter of where and when. But the way I see it, it's all a matter if the top three are there. And you could run any scenario you want. It's all a matter of what happens.
Exactly. At 17, it really depends on who's there. And, you know, the talk about Deontay Banks or Joey Porter Jr. being there at 17 potentially for the Steelers to select. But, I mean, if one of the top three tackles is there, I think it'd be really hard to pass up on because I hate to bring it up, but how many times did we pass up on Creed Humphrey at center when that was probably the most needed position at the time?
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like linebacker and D tackle and corner are so stacked, and we have 4 picks in the top 80.
Yeah.
We can wait for those positions if we have to. But one thing's for sure, I think we can all agree that seeing all these moves and seeing the rumors of Orlando Brown, and of course Bud Dupree was released by the Titans, and he's being rumored to come back to the Steelers, and they could still sign a receiver. They have to sign their own free agents. I think we all agree the Steelers are far from done.
Yeah.
And they have roughly, I want to say, 11, 12 million in cap, and they could still restructure contracts. Maybe Daniel's contract, maybe Chooks' contract, maybe TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, which that's happened in the past. They have ways to create cap space and still make moves. So even though we are past week 1 of the free agency period, week 2 should still come with a lot more moves. But one I think is definitely needed, I think we all agree, is Terrell Edmunds. He needs to come back. And the fact that he's not resigned yet worries me. Ben, how do you feel about that?
Like you have said, it does concern me because we all called him a bust after his first couple of years because, like, well, he's not getting all these picks. He's blowing coverages. He has really grown into one of the quiet linchpins of this defense. Because while Minka's doing his thing on one side, Edmunds is locking down the other side. And he really has improved on his coverage. And he is a very sound tackler. That's one thing a lot of fans are not appreciating. Edmunds is one of the best tacklers that we have. And there really isn't a replacement left out there on free agency for him. Poyer just re-signed with the Bills. A couple other guys like Jesse Bates just signed with Atlanta, I believe. Like, there really aren't good replacements. Yeah, there's a couple guys towards the tail end, but not like where Edmunds is. And it'll be really interesting to see if they manage to pull it off. They secure that, possibly draft somebody else behind him. Because it is something that will have to be addressed in the coming years. But right now, if they want to keep the core of this defense together, Edmunds is now their top priority. And they can do it. Like you said, they can restructure contracts. They can find a way to get him to re-sign. Now, another interesting thing about Edmunds, because of his tackling ability, he's more of a tackler than a coverage guy. And we know that there has been issues in regards to the box, defending the run. There could be a chance, if they can't sign him as a safety, could we see a transition of him to be some sort of dime backer, move him down into the box, and bring in a new safety during the draft? That could also be a possibility because Edmunds is a very quick, reactive guy, and he does hit. And Pittsburgh likes to do, especially over the past couple of years, they like to run these very exotic defensive back packages. So, especially with these new linebackers, you could have Holcomb and Edmunds in the box, and you could have Minka, KZ, and then possibly a new safety roaming out in the backfield. They have options, but they can't explore these options unless they sign Edmunds.
Yeah.
Which I think they're going to do. I think they're in the talking period. They're keeping it hush-hush. And I don't think he's flashy enough to outside teams to warrant them to take him. I could be wrong. But, I mean, I think everybody else is okay at the safety spot, so it's just a matter of time. I think he will be back in the black and gold, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I think it's necessary, even if they want to keep him at safety, right? For the lack of coverage linebackers, they could still run those exotic 3 safety sets with KZ, Minka, and Edmunds and put either guy at any position in the dime, in the box, in the slot,
exactly
high safety, and everyone will still benefit from each other.
Exactly what they did last year, and it benefited the secondary a lot.
That's one of the reasons why we had the most interceptions, tied for it at least. So, I mean, I also love the theory of moving him to dimebacker. I know Vince Williams said that on Twitter as well, and I think that's great to hear. And for the linebacking market, maybe he does move to linebacker. Seeing what his brother got, he could transition there. Because, I mean, the linebacker market's a little heftier than the safety market, at least from what we've seen for agents.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that could surely benefit Edmunds, not only for Edmunds, but for the Steelers at the same time.
Yeah.
You get extra room in there. You know, Edmunds has shown that he's capable of playing that strong safety role. He's very dependable at that position, but to move him down there at linebacker and either sign a guy like maybe for whoever's really available at the moment, I think maybe a Taylor Rapp or
I think Rapp signed somewhere.
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, regardless,
I'm
whoever
pretty sure he signed.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, whoever they decide to sign or even draft, you know, because it's not out the realm of possibility they draft a safety to develop him underneath, you know, to have that on the defense, a loaded secondary and linebacker core like that. That's pretty beneficial for the Steelers.
It's very beneficial for the run defense especially. So either way you look at it, Edmunds needs to be re-signed, and I think he's absolutely Steelers' top priority at the moment. But they are far from done from making moves. Like I said, they could go edge depth, maybe tackle depth on either side of the football, maybe a receiver. We still have yet to hear what's going to happen to even our own free agents: Edmunds, Gentry, Derek Watt, Steven Sims. I mean, so many others to be heard from. So we'll see what the Steelers do, but they're far from done, and I'm excited to see what Week 2 holds upon us in terms of Steelers moves and Steelers news. So, yeah, and anything you want to say before we get on out of here, Ben?
I'll say that the future is bright. This is only the beginning. And the best thing for us fans is to be hopeful because there are still issues with this team. We know that. But we also know that this team shines in the face of adversity, and we also find a way to make something out of nothing. So Kenny is the future. I have full confidence in his ability, and I know that especially after draft, this team will be complete, and they will make noise because for them to do what they did at the tail end of last year showed all of us that they have the heart and they have the will to win. So let's just take it one day at a time, pump the brakes, and let's see what happens. But I'm looking forward to the 2023 season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Is there any wishes you have for this upcoming week?
I'd say re-sign Edmunds, and if they can find a way to fit it in, bring in Dupree.
I love that. I think that would take this
Get
offseason.
the boys back together.
If they can pull those two off, I think this offseason and the energy is going to skyrocket.
Yes.
I would love that.
Because there's one thing that a lot of people aren't considering. We know how Dupree was on the opposite side of Watt. Now you got Highsmith on the up and up, who I watched at my old college. I watched him in person. He is a monster, and I knew he would be. Think about this for a second. Watt on one side with Cam Hayward, and the other side with Dupree and Highsmith. How many teams can block that kind of pass rush? Not many.
No.
So if they can find a way to fit him in, yeah, they got a real defense. So fingers crossed.
And they absolutely need that edge depth severely, especially with Malik Reed signing with the Dolphins. Not like we were going to sign him anyway. He really didn't do anything, but we need
No, he
edge
didn't
depth.
do anything.
We definitely need edge depth. Last year showed that truly bringing a guy like Dupree back to get that connection going and have that pass rush duo like we had in 2020 when they were together for that 1 year. Just make the pass rush, the front seven even more dynamic.
It's all a matter of what Dupree wants and how he values himself, but it's a serious return that is made it's made to happen. So hopefully that's the case. But one thing's for sure, more news are coming. Khan and company are far from done, and I'm excited to see what they do. One thing's for sure, they are very active, and this is unlike anything we've seen the past couple years, even last year. Wouldn't you agree, Ben?
I would agree wholeheartedly. I'm excited to see the activity that they have, way more than what we're used to in the past couple of years. So the fact they're actively looking to fix these problems rather than waiting complacently, it's a good sign. And we can only imagine what they can do in the coming years. So I'm very stoked to see what this new front office is capable of.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's funny because we started this week, this free agency, like, wow, they're not really doing anything. They let Sutton walk, they didn't make no cat moves. And then Omar Khan and Waddle said, hold my Iron City, just watch.
Pretty much.
And watch, we will continue to, because they're really making something happen. Again, not a lot of these signings, not a lot of these moves are mind-blowing or big names or not a lot of money being tossed around, but most of these signings are very solid. They are absolute upgrades. I love what they're doing, and even the contracts we got them for, very good, team-friendly, and very deserving for all these guys. So I think that'll do it for episode 4 of the Steeler Culture Podcast, and we thank Ben for joining us this week and welcome you to SteelYinters.com, and glad you're on board and cannot wait to get you on for extra episodes.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here, and I'm just thankful for the opportunity. Can't wait to see you more.
Absolutely, man. And otherwise, we'll end it there. Definitely follow us on Twitter at SteelTwins. Follow Ben on Twitter. I believe it's at SteelManBen.
Steelman Ben. That's correct. All caps.
I'll put all the links in the description below. And other than that, we'll get on out. And you guys have a great one. We'll see what the Steelers do this week. And Rob, sign us off.
Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you later.
Peace!
Peace.